Hello and welcome to the Providence College Podcast. I'm your host, Liz Kay, and I'm joined by producer Chris Judd of the class of 2005. Here at the Providence College Podcast, we bring you interesting stories from the Fryer family. Today we're talking with Risa Takenaka, a rising senior who's spending the summer working on research here at PC. Risa is an applied physics major and is minoring in math and philosophy. Risa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, you're a researcher in Dr. Steve Mecca's S Lab. Can you tell us about the lab and what you're doing there?
So Dr. Mecca, the students who work in his lab work on sustainability projects and projects that work with global health equity. So I've been producing a slow sand filter, which is a device that cleans water and creates potable water for the past semester. And I've been testing it with microbiology, and the results were good, and it effectively cleaned the water. So I was able to actually go to Ghana with a couple other kids in my lab and some other people for the Maymester in Ghana and actually build my filter there.
And so how long had you been working on the filter?
I think I started sophomore year, spring semester. I kind of got the idea and started talking about it with Dr. Mecca. And then I started making 3D sketches on this website called SketchUp, and then actually building the device took a really long time. So I think that was the beginning of junior year in the fall that I started building it.
So going from the 3D design to the prototype took a long time.
Yes, there were a lot of issues collecting the materials. So my filter uses a PVC pipe that's 8-inch diameter, but it's a drain quality, and that was kind of hard to find. So we had some issues with that. And then I guess just like creating it was like really tedious, and I didn't want to mess up, so I took a lot of time doing it.
And so what was your goal for the project? What were you hoping to accomplish with the filter?
So there had been people who were making slow sand filters in Dr. Mecca's S Lab before me. There was someone who graduated last year who created one with charcoal, and my classmates Carlos Perez and Sam Jennings have also been making them. So I just wanted to see if I could make it with a PVC pipe that was bigger and could be used in households, because the previous model was a 3-bucket system, which meant that it used 3 buckets instead of one main water reservoir, and it took a lot more maintenance to take care of.
So this would have been a kind of simpler system for people in their homes.
And I was also trying to cut the cost down so that it would be affordable for people living in third world countries.
Very neat. And so what was the experience like when you went to Ghana on the Maymester? You were able to actually bring your prototype or build your prototype there?
Yeah, we actually were able to build my prototype. So Ghana was very, very, very fun and interesting and a really great experience. There's a marketplace like right by where we went to school, and we got all the materials that we needed at like the local market stands. So that was really nice. And there's actually someone who's part of Global Sustainability Aid Project, which is Dr. Mecca's organization, working in Ghana. He's the head of the GSEP Center in Pakwase, Ghana, where we went. So he was able to help me a lot, help me wash the sand, help me drill the holes for the PVC pipe, and we made it together.
And so what are you working on this summer now?
This summer I'm working with Dr. Arroyo. I'm doing something a little bit different than my research in Dr. Mecca's lab, but I'm kind of studying the cross-cultural ethics and cross-cultural value systems between Japan and America, specifically how ethics in each society shapes the practices surrounding child rearing and early education.
Wow, that's fascinating. So where did you get the inspiration for that research?
So I was born in Japan, but I was raised in America by 2 Japanese parents. So I had a really interesting upbringing that was both Japanese and American. So when I would be at home, I would speak only Japanese with my parents, and they would parent me in a way that was very distinct to Japanese culture, which I didn't know at the time. I thought it was just normal and everyone was raised that way. But I actually was looking into, when I started gaining interest in philosophy like last year, I really started to look at how certain values that societies emphasize really affects behaviors. So this is kind of like sociology also, but I just really wanted to know the historical background and the philosophical background behind how Americans and Japanese people raise their kids.
Can you give me some examples of how the differences?
So in Japan, kinship and like closeness with your parents is a really important thing. So kids sleep between their parents for like a long time until they're like 6 or 7. And then also one of the biggest emphases on Japanese society is like collective, like cooperative group interest. And so being part of a group is really, really important compared to in America, where the individual kind of stands out and like individualism is really emphasized. So in America, teenagers or kids are often like scolded by being grounded, and like that takes away their freedom. They're not allowed to leave the house. But on the other hand, in Japan, kids are punished by getting locked out of the house, and they really want to come back in and be part of the group again. So I thought that was one of the most interesting things that I found.
And how have you gone about your research this summer with Dr. Arroyo?
So I've been reading a lot. I started with how gender norms in the family life affect the dynamic and structure of family and parenting. So I've started with like a historical background on how household dynamics became established. And it started with researching like feudal Japan and what the family life was like then, and then how it changed over the course of westernization. And I was specifically looking at how Matthew Perry came to Japan and opened up some ports, and there was a lot of Western influence, especially not only on like political and economic life, but especially in the social and family life.
Interesting. So there was some influences, as you described, but there's still some distinct differences.
There's very distinct differences. And I think it's also really interesting because under General McDouglas, after the World War II, Japan's education system was reformed to be just like America's, yet they're so different even today. So for example, I actually went to Japan a couple times when I was like growing up. Actually, a lot of times. I used to go every other summer, but I would go to school for a little bit because the schools would always be in session during the summer. But everyone makes their lunch together and serves it together and cleans up together. And it's a very, I guess the way of life within the education system is very different. And it really does emphasize like cooperation and living within a society together, cooperating.
You can see from that example that this is sort of like, it kind of mirrors the home life, right? If everyone cleans up together, kind of the way you would clean up after dinner in your home. Yeah.
And the emphasis on the arts and culture is very, very large. I remember we would like music class was like taken very seriously, and everyone just had like a sense of pride of being at school and being with their peers. It was really different from America.
Didn't get that sense when you were in class in Missouri. So what led to your interest in philosophy? Did you kind of discover that love when you came to PC?
Yeah, so I actually didn't even know about the word philosophy until college, but I took Civ. When I took Civ my sophomore year with Dr. Arroyo and Dr. Bennett and Dr. Mulderry, I really, really liked all three of the professors' teaching styles, but I especially was drawn to the pieces of philosophy that Dr. Arroyo introduced to our class. So I remember telling him, like, oh my goodness, every time I read philosophy, I just like keep thinking about things that I didn't really think about before, and it made me feel like super restless, but in a good way. So I really started to be interested in it, but definitely have learned a lot more about what philosophy like entails, and I guess just the broad spectrum of things that there can be philosophies about. Like, for example, when I was at Brown, I learned about like philosophy of language, philosophy of physics, metaphysics, all these branches of physics or philosophy that I didn't really know existed. So that was really cool.
So tell us more about your experience at Brown this summer.
Oh, yeah. So I attended a program at Brown called SIP. It stands for Summer Immersion Philosophy Program. And it was 2 weeks of intensive coursework and just mentorship from graduate students to learn about what graduate life in philosophy was like. And we took 2 seminars a day. And the first one was Philosophy of Time. And that was a metaphysics course where we talked about, first of all, like, what is time, whether it's something that's substance or something that's abstract and only used to measure like temporal relations. And we also talked about like what times exist. So we talked about a bunch of theories that say only the present exists, or that past, present, and future equally exist. It was really cool because in my modern physics class fall semester, I actually learned about like Einstein's laws of relativity. So we talked about that as well. And then the other seminar that we attended was Global Justice, which was, again, really cool. We went over some pieces by Singer and Nagel, which I was kind of familiar with from my Catholic social thought class that I took with Dr. McGoldrick in the spring. So it was so, I guess, fulfilling. It was really fulfilling to be with a lot of other students who were so knowledgeable in the area. And it was awesome. I really learned a lot, and it made me think about whether I really wanted to seriously pursue philosophy after graduation.
That's really interesting because it sounds like you've gotten kind of a full, a complete picture. You've been able to examine time from all these different perspectives, from a very scientific perspective to this very philosophical approach, and of giving you a more complete picture. So what are your thoughts about after graduation?
So I was a little hesitant after attending the program just because it is a little difficult to get a job outside of academia as a philosopher, but I'm definitely thinking about applying to graduate programs in bioethics because I've had a background in kind of public health, and I'm really interested in the sphere of health and ethics combined. So I was actually able to speak with one of the directors, and she was telling me how bioethics is a kind of an exception within the philosophy fields because there's some jobs and professions outside of just teaching. And so I'm definitely going to give that a shot. I actually took a bioethics class with Dr. Carlson junior year in the fall, and I think it was one of my favorite classes that I've ever taken. So I really want to pursue that at a graduate level.
And Dr. Lisa Carlson's a philosophy professor,
yes,
right?
She is.
So kind of had a window on this sort of practical application of ethics. And but when you came to PC, it sounds like you were pursuing kind of a more pre-engineering path.
Yeah, so I actually started with pre-med. I was a biology major, and then I switched to pre-engineering. And I was like, I'm going to do the 3-2 program. And then I switched to just physics. And then I decided to add the philosophy minor. So I jumped around a little bit, but I'm really happy with the things that I've decided to pursue.
It sounds like you've taken some wonderful classes that have really helped you pick the right path for you. Well, tell us how you decided to come to Providence College in the first place.
When I was in high school, I just really didn't like the Midwest, so I really wanted to go to the Northeast. So I was looking at a few schools in the area, but the PC coach was actually the first coach I contacted for tennis, and I didn't know at the time that I would end up coming here, but he was really nice to me. But unfortunately, he stepped down like 2 days before my official visit, and it's senior year in November. But I came on my visit anyways, and the assistant coach had been moved up to the head coach, and I really loved it here, and I really liked the girls on the team, and I was really interested in the concept of a liberal arts school, so I decided to come here. I committed then, and I came here.
Fantastic. And so you have had an amazing tennis career, and can you tell us how you pursued that in high school and how you managed your time here at PC?
So I've been playing tennis since I was like shorter than the net, honestly. My mom would always feed me balls when I was like 5 or 6 at like the local tennis courts, and I started playing tournaments when I was 10, I think, and I just really loved it. I knew I would play in high school, and I played in high school, and I had a little bit of a slump like senior year, but because I was deciding on whether or not to play in college and whether it would be realistic or not. But I found a school that I would be able to really focus on my academics while playing tennis at a high level. So that's what I really liked about PC. And it's been really, really rewarding. I'm really, really happy that I chose to play tennis because it's forced me to manage my time better than I would have previously done so. And it's really taught me a lot about working with other people towards a common goal. I really like the student athletes at PC. It's a really good community.
I'm curious about some of the hacks or ways that you've been able to make your schedule work. I mean, balancing practice and travel time to meets and everything else. So
I had a really hard time focusing and managing my time freshman and even a little bit into sophomore year. But I think junior year kind of clicked for me that I really needed to just make a schedule, write in my planner, and then make a to-do list every day and really stick to it. I had one of my difficulties was staying motivated throughout the semester because it can be hard to not taper off after like the first month or so. But I kind of just motivated myself, but by saying like, if I do my work now, I can have fun later. But it's just so easy to fall behind it. I knew that fall semester, my junior year, I was taking modern physics, which was a really hard class. And I knew that I really needed to work hard or else I would just not be able to do well in the class and I would really, really fall behind. So I think that semester really set the tone for like the rest of the year and into senior year, hopefully, of just really learning how to set time aside and do what I need to do.
Well, it seems like your summer is no less busy than your spring semester and fall semester would have been. When did you leave for Ghana?
I left for Ghana
the week after finals?
Yes, or 2 weeks after finals, so like mid-May.
Okay. And tell us about that trip. Where did you go and were you able to see?
We stayed in a village called Pequase, or I went with, I think, 7 other students. Some that I had been friends with for a while, and then others who I didn't know at all, but we were able to bond a lot. We stayed in a village not a village, like in these apartments in this area called Pequase in Ghana, and we traveled, I think it was like 15 hours. It was a really long airplane ride, but we went to school every day and we took a class taught by Dr. McGoldrick about sustainability and social value, and which was actually really, really helpful when I was working on my water filter there, because he taught us about considering using the systems approach, which is what we learned about in Dr. Mecca's systems and modelings class, but kind of like, for example, thinking about like implementing a water filter, you need to also consider like the cultural factors and the environmental factors and what the people of Ghana value and see if that's compatible with their way of life. And so it really helped me to think about a water filter, not just as a water filter, but something that's beyond and needs to be compatible with other spheres of life. So we took that class, and then we took a few trips. One we took to the AIDS center in, I don't remember where in Ghana it was, but it was run by Father Bobby, who was actually, I think he went to PC, but that was really moving. I think that was the most memorable part of the trip. We were able to speak with and share or listen to stories from patients of AIDS and listen to like not just their struggles, but also about how they were managing and coping and staying positive with their condition. But it really made me realize the lack of medical, or I guess just the difference in the level of medical care that's available in Ghana, which was interesting because I thought like as soon as I landed, I would like notice that, but everyone was so happy and appreciative of a simple life that you almost forget that you're in a third world country and that there are major differences in medical care, and the amount of women who die giving birth is still really high, and you almost forget that because the people are so happy and just joyful to be there and alive.
And so it sounds like you got to have all these experiences and see them from all different lenses, because Dr. McGoldrick comes from a theology background, and so he was teaching this course on systems, but from a theology perspective, you'd already gotten it from Dr. Mecca in a more of a engineering framework. So, and you got a chance to apply the things that you were learning in the classroom in the field. Did you also get an opportunity to reflect on what that experience was like?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually wrote a reflection for Dr. Comfort Ate also went on the trip, but we wrote a reflection that we submitted to Dr. McGoldrick and Dr. Ate. But some of the things that we wrote about were just like how Ghana was compared to what we had expected, and what it was like to, the classes we took were with students from Aseshi University in Ghana. So what it was like to be in a class with students from a different country, and they were all very intelligent and well-spoken, and I guess just living in a different part of the world and experiencing life from a different lens had influenced the students from Aseshi to like make comments and make contributions to the class that I had never really even thought of. So I learned a lot just from their presence in the classroom. So
getting their perspective.
Yeah.
Was anything about the trip that surprised you, or what you were able to see?
Yeah, so I really didn't know what to expect, but I was really just surprised at, especially in Accra, which is the big city in Ghana, but just driving in and out of Accra, like the roads were paved, there were huge hotels, like it was very modernized, and I was really surprised. Like Pakwase, the village that we were in, was not as modernized. It was more what I'd expected, but I think the difference in the level of technology and modernization between the two, the village and the city, were something that I did not realize.
And sort of this contrast between the modern city center. Well, you've gotten to see so many places and experience. I'm curious what you think of Providence. When you knew you didn't want to stay in the Midwest for college, but what's your college experience been like? And
it's been really great. Like academically, as far as it goes, I'm a huge generalist. Like I love interdisciplinary work because I'm not the kind of person who specializes in one area and wants to just learn about one thing. So being at a liberal arts school and being able to pursue a degree in STEM while learning about the humanities has been really, really just something that I didn't even realize was so important to me. And I think I got really lucky because when I was in high school, I didn't really think about, the humanities or philosophy is something that I'll be really interested in. I really wasn't thinking about that, and so I got really lucky to go to a school that has a program that I can do both.
And you can really embrace it.
Yeah. And as for the size of the school, I think this is like a great fit for me, and just the community and the atmosphere has been really good to be a part of. I think I really found my place here, so it's been nice.
It's been great. And how about the city of Providence? Have you been able to embrace it as well?
So my sister and I like to just go out on the weekends and go to different coffee shops and walk around downtown. It's been really nice, and there's a lot of good food. So
where are your favorite spots? I
really like Siena. It's on Federal Hill. I went there for my visit, actually, when I came for my tennis official visit, and I was like, wow, this place is so good. But a lot of the places on Federal Hill are really good.
So the kind of the Little Italy of Providence is that your main destination?
Yeah, I really love carrot cake, and the carrot cake at Pastiche is so good. So that's probably my favorite dessert to get.
Yeah, I think Pastiche in Federal Hill is probably the best destination for dessert in the city, without a doubt. And you mentioned your sister also comes here. Did she kind of see your experience here? What brought her to Providence?
So funny thing, we actually used to fight a lot and not get along at all in high school. And she was actually looking at a couple schools all over the place. Her top choice was Brown, but she didn't get in. But I convinced her to apply to Providence, and she did. And she got a really good scholarship, so my parents were like, oh, you should go. And she really didn't want to come to the same school as me, but she did. And I think she won't admit it, but I think she was really relieved that she was going somewhere that wasn't completely foreign, because I had already been here for 2 years. So I think it's been really nice to have a sister here, because I don't know, I live far away, so sometimes I get homesick, but it's nice to be able to talk to someone who like knows me and gets me.
And knows a little bit about the way you were brought up.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So what advice would you have for people who are kind of like yourself, in terms of just interested in lots of academic things? How would you?
I'd say go for it. Like, just learning is something that doesn't have a rigid structure if you don't force a rigid structure on it. And I think the best thing about undergrad especially is that you can hop around different things and learn about different disciplines, and anything you like, knowledge is something that you're not going to regret taking a class, or you're not going to regret deciding to pursue something rather than another. Like, knowledge is so valuable in itself. And I think taking opportunities to learn, like, for example, I really didn't think I was going to get accepted into the Brown thing, because everyone there, even when I got there, everyone there was a philosophy major and was so much like farther ahead of me, even in the fundamental things about philosophy and like vocab and everything. But I learned so much, and it was really fulfilling. And I think any advice is just don't let anyone tell you that you only have to do one thing, or you should do one thing or rather than the other. Like, another struggle that I had was sometimes people were kind of discouraging, because when I would say that I'm a STEM major, but I really was like deciding whether or not to pursue philosophy, they'd be like, oh, but you could get a much better job doing engineering or doing something in STEM, which is true, but at the end of the day, you just have to do something that you love, because I would rather be doing something that I love rather than doing something that makes a lot of money. But that's just me, and I'm really naive, but...
Well, I mean, the practical applications of the fields that you're considering now in terms of bioethics would have such a great impact on people's lives in kind of the same way as medicine or engineering or other fields in philosophy. So I'm curious if there's anything that surprised you about Providence College that, coming from a part of the country that was so far away.
Yeah. I mean, the people here are different than back at home. I can't really pinpoint what's different, but I think I don't really know what's different, but it's definitely like a different vibe, a different atmosphere. It's a little more fast-paced than Missouri. Missouri's kind of slow-paced. Everyone's really nice, but not saying people here aren't nice, but it's definitely more like welcoming in the Midwest. But I don't know. I was ready for something that was a little bit more fast-paced, so I really like it. I was not that surprised when I came here.
Risa, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Subscribe to the Providence College podcast in all the usual places, including iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. If you like what you hear, please review and share with others. Thanks for listening, and go Friars.